Oh, super happy to be here. I was just saying that my whole career has been in consumer packaged goods and has continued to be a passion for me. I started at a large multinational doing brand marketing and have worked my way smaller and smaller businesses and feel lucky enough to have landed in the startup community and really be surrounded by founders and be able to learn from each other. So most recently, I came to Oregon for Stumptown Coffee and had the pleasure of growing the cold brew business. And then about 5 years ago, made my way over to Aunt Fannie's. We make the safest and most effective natural cleaning products. And we've been growing that business for over 5 years and making some interesting choices along the way that I'm going to share with you guys.
So my background is entirely in digital retail. So in college, it was 96, I started a business online selling natural products, like nutritional supplement products. And then that evolved into essentially a business after college to continue to manage and run. And I was able to sell that in 2003. And then as I worked with this other organization that acquired me, we saw this fairly significant shift happening in the market. Consumers likely migrating to marketplaces. At the time, it was everything from eBay to Sears to a lot of different places. Obviously, there's this small one out of Seattle that was emerging that we connected with and started selling on, and really put our energy around that. And so we started a business called Netrush in 2006. Initially, it was really going to brands and saying, hey, there's going to be a need for resources and technologies and infrastructure to really help support consumers as they migrate over to this marketplace. And so we actually came into the market as a seller. So we were coming in as, we bought and sold their product and ultimately became their exclusive retailer on the marketplace. And of course, after over 18 years, that business has evolved quite a bit. We have a few hundred individuals now in our organization, spread across the United States, doing everything from strategy to marketing, creative. We have supply chain in Kentucky. So really soup to nuts in regards to retailing. So really at the end of the day, we're here to really connect brands with their best customers on marketplaces and as well as with technology we're now applying to the product itself, which we can kind of go through as well today. So thank you for having me. So today, let's start about talking about Aunt Fannie's and your approach. I think that was the most interesting in my view because there was quite a bit of shifting that's occurred in the last number of years. So I'd love to learn more about that and maybe talk through kind of your approach to retailing and marketplaces, et cetera, for Aunt Fannie's.
Absolutely. And I think as Mitch kind of set up the topic for us, it's really how do you find your best customers? And I think you can parse that apart in a bunch of different ways. And I think, like, if I go back to the early days of Aunt Fannie's, we were doing what many of you are doing right now, trying to sell anything to anybody, right? You're talking to brokers and distributors, and you're getting the big call with Target maybe for the presentation. And in the meantime, like, have you sent out the emails for your new subscription on DTC? And by the way, who's managing Amazon? And so it's just that, like, there seems to be so many opportunities, and your energy is to chase all of them. So we were chasing all of them and we were exhausted. And to be honest, running out of money, which is probably a feeling people can relate to as well. And so at the time we did what seems very obvious now in hindsight, but a very simple 80-20 exercise. Where's our energy? What's the team working on? What is it producing? And where's the profit? And the answer was 80% of our energy was going into brokers, KHE, Unify, deductions, and just chasing that whole world and changing brokers every year and trying to figure all of that out. And over here on the other side, with a little bit of effort at the time, Amazon was growing more than double digits. We started partnering with some online retailers, marketplaces like Grove Collaborative, Thrive Market. And those pieces of business were just growing with no effort. And so, radical idea, we were like, what if we turned off all of these really difficult channels and just went to these channels where clearly our consumers wanted to buy us? Like they were doing it without us trying very hard. So what if we tried? So really coincidental timing. March of 2020, if you remember it. It genuinely was coincidental, though. We'd just done this exercise. We turned off KHE and UNFI, and it was sacrificing a really large chunk of our business, but it was a very unprofitable chunk and a very difficult one. And so the good luck that came with it, if you were in the cleaning business, COVID was not a bad time. And so those online platforms that had been growing obviously skyrocketed. But what we positioned ourselves to do was manage a supply chain to take care of our best customers and to be prepared really kind of for post-COVID and all the things that shifted from there. So after following a traditional CPG path, we became and still are 90% online.
Great. Yeah. I mean, that's, again, timing was huge on that as well. What's the refinement? What did you learn along the way that I think you can share with everyone around difficult challenges you had as a team, question marks, of course, about operationally, like did you have the right team essentially to make that shift, et cetera?
We did. We had to make some personnel changes because obviously we didn't need the support for brick and mortar like we had. And we found some new partners to help us support on the Amazon side. And then I would say the hard lesson has been we've done a little too well on the Amazon side. And if any of you know Amazon, it's also not a super profitable channel. So we've now grown that we're not as balanced as we'd like to be in that area. So we're looking to diversify in some other areas. The other interesting one that we've found, and I was talking to Paul earlier about this, we've been trying to just really question, like, as a business, what are we doing because we've been told we're supposed to do it versus what's actually working for us? And I think you're told you have to have a D2C site, right? You have to have a business directly with your customers. And we'll talk about why you should and it's important. But for us, we analyzed that. It was such a small percent of our business. Our category isn't so highly involved that somebody wants to spend $40 every time they go to buy a cleaning product. And so that was another lesson that we probably 2 years too long kept pouring resources, email marketing, digital marketing, all of those pieces to try to make this thing work when all signs were pointing to no. So we actually turned off our store April of this year.
And then as you think about, I guess, direct to consumer or Amazon, I think of that again as a way of going direct to consumer. And then of course you're thinking about brick and mortar retail on the ground. How is that changing? How are you thinking about that again now?
Yeah, I think that, and I'm going to tag you back in so I don't do all the talking here. But I think the big piece, and we've known this along our journey, one of our big challenges now is that we've lost that one-on-one communication with our consumer, right? Like you give that up when you give up D2C. And so we have all of these Amazon consumers and we know they're out there and our repeat is strong, but we're really struggling to connect with the actual core. I feel like we've done a really good job on channel and now the big challenge is consumer. So Brian and I had some, what was very eye-opening conversation to me about thinking about engaging with your consumer through technology in a way that hasn't existed before. So can you tell us some about what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the core question that we ask almost all brands is like, who is your most valuable customer? And typically you get two answers. Actually, one is a retailer, which is what they'll communicate. They'll say Sprouts. Mm-hmm. And then the other one will be, I don't know. And that's where we want to dive in, of course. And as we look at like billions in transactions every year and look at all the consumer data, especially on Amazon, again, there is some inabilities to see everything, but there are good information you can derive from that, behaviors, insights. Mainly, it's really about, when we would say that, I would say value. So who's the most valuable customer and where we should be focusing your energies? And so once you can segment that, and so in the case of maybe and Fannie's, if you look at the millions of transactions and you really segment really who are the most valuable, you're going to find actually a really small percentage in almost all cases that make up a very large percentage of your sales, consumers. And so So really, I think one of the questions we get asked is, how do you want to use Amazon? How should I use Amazon? And there's two main ways I believe that come out. One is as you're obviously starting up, or as you're obviously growing as a brand, it really is in one sense a net, right? It's a catch-all. In one way, you're kind of creating these experiences along the way and trying to identify where your most valuable consumer is wanting to engage with your brand. And that next transaction is going to be essentially going to be a place that more people are familiar with, they trust, they know their selection for, they know we're going to get it in a few days. And that's Amazon. So Amazon could definitely be a catch-all for that next transaction in regards to after they get acquired or familiar with your brand. The second part of it is where more than ever, I think the need is, because of the expense of just the marketplace itself, is using it kind of as thinking of it as a spear. So really getting an understanding of who your most valuable consumers are, how are they behaving, how are they engaging, in what way are they actually being introduced to your brand, how do they want to purchase, in what way are they purchasing, where do they start with your brand and where do they buy next, and really start to really derive that information so you can really focus on acquiring your next best customer on the marketplace. And that just creates a lot of need to really understand and really dive into that type of customer or the customer insights. So,
and I think is Brian and I had earlier conversations, some of his questions to me about Aunt Fannie's, like, I know the base answers, right? Like, I know average repeat purchase cycle is 60 days. Average order volume is $15. And he's like, but what about your most valuable? And I'm like, more than that? Like, totally, I don't know. And because we tend to talk in those core KPIs, right? Like, where's the biggest volume? What's the average person doing? And I think his challenge to me, to all of us, is to really look and see, like, who is that person? And I think I haven't found the answers yet, but I'm going to make just a guess. We talk to consumers, residential consumers, you buying to clean your own kitchen, your own bathroom. And one of my theories might be, if we dig into the Amazon data enough, it might be somebody ordering every 14 days. They buy 6-packs, they buy refills. And if you put 2 and 2 together, they're clearly a cleaning business. And we're doing no outreach and no effort to talk to, small independent cleaning businesses that could be really amazing volume for us, who are then influencing all the people around them. And so, yeah, it was just one of those moments where I was like, I need to stop looking at the average and start looking at the best and see what that can really uncover for us.
Right. Yeah. Trying to remove averages is tough because that's kind of been our dialect. But I think there's going to be obviously a need to focus on your most valuable, but there's also, from an economics perspective, you still need to have a good pool of consumers that come in. And like I said, just be aware that as you make those investments and you think about things like, customer lifetime value and your CAC, which your, cost to acquire the customer, just make sure and be mindful that are you looking just to acquire to make sure there's revenue, or are you looking to acquire because that's the most valuable consumer? And then, of course, from there, whether it be in marketplace or in addition to other means in which you can connect, is like how are you then nurturing that relationship? Because ultimately, a retail is just the means to the end, which the end is really a creation of a relationship with the customer that you can nurture and have for a long time, right? So yeah, no, that was a good insights, and I think I'd love to continue to dive in with you on that as well. So. What else do I have for you?
I want you to talk about this.
Absolutely.
If you will, let you pitch it. Going back to, again, like all of these Amazon consumers, but how do I have an opportunity to ever engage with them other than through more Amazon ads, which, as you know, are functional, but not influential maybe in the way that we want to connect with these folks.
Right. And as of course, we're talking about trying to get connected to customer. That is actually one of the largest problems I see for brands. And really what that means is that everyone thinks that there isn't an inability to do that with the marketplace. And I think there are abilities to do that. But in essence, there's just a way for us to have to rethink outside the box. And actually, for the first 16 years, was CEO of Netrush. And then I kind of stepped away because the intent was to really walk away and say, how do I disrupt Netrush? Right? How do I create a business model that disrupts it? And because it has to be disrupted, it will be disrupted. change is kind of was constant, right? There's evolution to all. And so again, the question I was trying to answer with my business partner was like better connection to consumer. There's got to be a better way, not just marketplace. Again, marketplace is fantastic. Amazon's fantastic because of the pool of individuals is massive, and the ability to narrow it down to the individuals is there. But we've saw that every transaction ended up in the consumable space or in the product space with a product in hand. So essentially now is that what if that was the platform for the next transaction or next engagement moment? And so through various investments, we really looked at how to really apply and utilize the product itself as that ability to have a brand connect. So regardless if it starts on Walmart or Sprouts or Amazon or direct to consumer or in store, et cetera, again, customer has product in hand. And for us, we're dealing with a lot of brands that are looking for that repeat purchase. So retention was big. So essentially, as we saw the evolution, not only of that, we saw evolution of Amazon continue to evolve. So part of it is that really Amazon's not going to become, it's not only becoming a marketplace anymore, it's a logistics, it's obviously, it's data, it's a payment method, et cetera. So what we did is we really applied the technology on the product to create the experience with your phone and essentially be able to tap on there and then ultimately be able to essentially repurchase right away off of that. So essentially we call it products as a platform, and then payment method here is just buy with Prime. So technically Amazon's now on your product. And so if I wanted to reorder this Digest Gold, which is an enzyme, tap it, click on there, double click, and just order it off my Prime account on this one. Of course, other payment methods like Apple Pay and Google as well. But again, it's just one evolution of, again, kind of creating what consumers are looking for, which was simplicity, frictionless operations, experiences. But again, utilizing, and again, in this case, if Aunt Fannie customer comes off Amazon, wants to order it here, you didn't know who that was, but now you know exactly who that is, right? So now you have a direct transaction, and then of course you have now that that information, which I think is the key to a lot of new opportunities for you to engage with the brand again, or the consumer again.
Yeah, so this idea excited me. We did that is the very smart technology version. We did the very basic one about a year ago where we added QR codes to our packaging to try to get people to come. Because we've accepted that they're likely not going to buy a lot on our website, but we'd still like them to stop by and visit. And we'd love to have them on our email list, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was our first simple effort. And I would say, and we have them come in and we can change where they land. If we wanted to showcase a new item, whatever we want to do, we can change that up on the back end. What we've had them do is answer a survey. So we're just getting live consumer data coming in. I probably get 5 a week, which I think is amazing that somebody's picking up our product and they're like, I want to tell you more about myself. So that was our off the marketplace way to bring people back into the fold. So we're getting some demographic information. We know how many pets they have, other interesting things like that. But I think being able to engage with them, grab their data, and create that repeat purchase, it has me really excited. And we're trying to figure out which way we can potentially look into that for the future.
Right. And it's always important. There's a value exchange. Obviously, what is the value of that customer doing that? Of course, back at that is what's the value of the brand receiving that, and make sure that's even to some degree, right?
Yep.
As well. So as you think about, I'd love to actually dive into more a little bit around just challenges on marketplaces that have come up that are kind of good learning moments that maybe share.
Oh, which ones? I would say one of ours, and I'm sure with all your different products, there's all these specific marketplaces out there. And when we started on Grove Collaborative, it was primarily cleaning, a few home supplies. We had a full suite of pest products, and we were killing it. And then they decided they wanted to be a major marketplace. And so it went from having 8 categories to, I don't even know, 68 categories. And so then trying to figure out how to stand out amongst the crowd and how to really engage with the marketplace to improve your SEO. Like they're doing things to improve their private label. And so it's just this constant energy towards what can we make better? How can our brand do better? How can we support you? So that we don't get lost and become that 68th category or whatever it may be. One of the things we've done that's worked really well is that we will, and we'll say this to Target, we'll say it to Walmart, we'll say it to a marketplace. Let us be your innovation partner. Where are your gaps? What do you need? Who isn't bringing you something? And one of it's actually our number 3 product now is our carpet refresher. And that came out of that conversation with the customer of we don't have anything for carpets. And we're like, we can do that. And so instead of doing like maybe expensive customer or consumer research or whatever you may be doing to come up with new ideas, let somebody with the data tell you what they're searching for and make that product. So that's been one of our ways. And then they get excited and they want to promote it. And we don't even have to pay to promote it. So it becomes a win-win to kind of stave off that getting lost in the marketplace.
In regards to maybe marketplace or Amazon, how do you, of course, I always visualize it as this like endless shelf. It's just massive. When it was a store, it'd be just, forever. How do you really choose and pick where do you want to invest today, I guess?
Yeah. The interesting thing about Amazon, and I'm not as familiar with some of the other marketplaces with paying for advertising, but your investments are long-term. They feel very short-term, right? Like you're judging your clicks and your costs and all of that. But I think what we started spending on in 2018 is still paying dividends. And one of our choices with the machine that is Amazon is we never stop spending because all of that keeps feeding into the algorithm and the ranking. So it's not necessarily what you're spending today, but how many reviews you got yesterday. And so we've tried to look at that from a bigger picture instead of just a monthly recap of KPIs, if you will. And we've started, you'll see a theme in all of my advice is like 80-20, like I came up with it myself. But we started looking at our advertising spend and we were spending kind of equally across everything. And then if you do very simple math, what you spend on your worst product is way less effective than what you spend on your best. And so instead of offering our whole our whole portfolio on Amazon, we've started to say, what do people really want to buy? And what can we support with our marketing dollars in the best way? And some of these now, like certain products live on certain platforms and vice versa. But that way we're not spreading our money everywhere. We're really focusing on what's working where it can work. So we're literally like, I'm winding down, 6 or 7 of the products right now.
I love how involved you are.
Very hands-on.
I think I love speaking to your background at Stumptown and brand marketing. Any big macro trends you're seeing? Anything that we should be thinking about where really the next opportunity lies, I guess.
We didn't practice this question. He's stumping me here a bit. Other than just changing and adapting, again, I was having this conversation and I'm sure you all I feel like in any startup, your business and the world around it changes every 6 months. And you've probably felt that, but if you haven't admitted it and changed what you're doing, like that's what's going to make you successful. Like it's constantly scrapping what was working 6 months ago isn't going to work going forward. And I think in terms of digital, social, like that stuff is changing so much and you can either be an expert and stay up on all the algorithm changes and whatnot. I think we're choosing to kind of play a gentle, friendly back seat on some of those things instead of spending a lot of time and energy trying to figure it out because that's not a huge engagement point for us. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest opportunities for, I think, disruption for a lot of brands that are going against kind of the Goliaths, right? A few things they've done really well. They've really engaged their audience through video, through content, in a very genuine way and really built that fan base. is one. I think we've seen, obviously, there's a massive fragmentation in regards to retail and digital. It seems like you can essentially buy a product almost anywhere now. But being close to that transaction is critical. Again, knowing that customer is massive. And then what you just spoke to, actually, which was really the rise of retail media, right? There's obviously big levels of media and spend. And obviously, all the glory goes to the one that's closest to that buy box, which is on the retail side. But obviously, the Walmarts, the Amazons, even the Googles, et cetera, are all monetizing the retail shelf as much as they can. And so obviously being proficient in that, but also understanding how it's connected to all the other actions you're doing is critical as well.
I think the other, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The other trend you made me think of, 5 years ago, presenting to brick and mortar, if you bragged about your Amazon ratings, they didn't care. They didn't want to hear it. And I think that world is shifting where now they know that, I mean, obviously Amazon is credible, but they're seeing that like, okay, you've built up a strong consumer base and you've proven your model, and I'll take you into brick and mortar because of that. So we've shifted like just our little sales decks quite a bit to focus on the success that we've had and what that should mean to a brick and mortar retailer going forward, in a way that I don't think would have worked 5 years ago.
Yeah, I absolutely see that quite a bit, and level of prove out in regards to like the marketplace, consumer. The more you can actually provide insights into that customer that you're really trying to engage with, the more interest they have, because obviously any retailer is looking for the traffic and that consumer as well to offer up to all the other products they have. We have a few minutes left. Anything else?
Any questions out there?
Hello, everyone. So I'm asking about Amazon and the QR code. If you incentivize the survey in any way, because one of the things I'm thinking about is that the packaging lives in different places, so it can't be an Amazon coupon or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about how you did that?
We originally, when the website was still a store, we originally had the language on the package, like click here for rewards. And so it brought them in, answer a short survey, and then they would get a coupon for the website. We have phased that out, and it's just a QR code, and I think people are curious. It surprises me that they're still clicking through, but they are.
Yeah, the only thing I would say of that is it's a little bit of a black hat, because have you guys heard of Bloom, which is a nutritional product? They do about, it's a TikTok really brand, do about 50 million on Amazon, and one day they're gone. And it was because exactly that, they incentivized for reviews. So there are ways to be able to engage. You just have to be cautious of the terms and conditions and how you're shifting consumers. I would say an insert would probably be more practical, and then bundling it with with that as well, your products. Oh, that one would be great. Yeah, I was thinking reviews in sense of like reviews on the Amazon Marketplace. Got it.
For those of us that are food and beverage that have a shelf life, or for me, like a melting point, because I make toffee with chocolate coating, I've yet to go down the Amazon road, especially with Fulfilled by Amazon, just how it's going to be handled in a warehouse and conditions and temperature and shipping. Would you have any recommendations for those of us that want to dive into Amazon but are very timid?
Yeah, I think what's most important is having a good agile like transportation or logistics partner. It's not going to be Amazon in many cases. They don't even do first in, first out. So they're going to distribute it. And obviously it's about efficiencies. 6 months out of the year, you need cold shipment as well in most cases. But there are ways to actually provide prime service, which is really quick, direct to consumer type of fulfillment. We could chat about that if you want to support on it. So we're on time.
Do we have time for one more? Mitch Doherty, where are you? Yes? Okay, we'll take the last question here. Hi.
I have a question for Diane. You mentioned Strive Market, and could you share your experience with them?
I'm trying to think back to the beginning. I believe we initially got distribution with them through KeHE. So KeHE was servicing their warehouses. After we exited KeHE, we reached out to them directly because we'd had a relationship from a marketing perspective, and we were able to secure a direct relationship. So they order typically weekly, maybe every other week from us, and we ship directly to their 3 warehouses. we've had a really positive relationship with them. I've heard different from others, but it's been a good platform for us, and we're still growing. I think they're growing as a whole. So
Let's hear it for Diane Aylsworth of Aunt Fannie's and Brian Gonsalves of Netrush. Thank you, guys. Thank you.